This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by the good-looking folks at GoDaddy.com. Use our code Linux and save yourself some cash. And welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 24, Episode 4. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Hey there, Matt. Should I tell the folks about the big show we got coming up today? This is a big show. All right. We've got an exclusive look at Lightworks, one of the most anticipated software launches for desktop Linux probably in history.
Epic.
We'll share our first thoughts on this award-winning video editor. It's an early preview, so we've got it loaded right here, Matt. I'm very excited.
Yes. Oh, well, big time.
Plus some good news for those of you not running Ubuntu but still want some Steam, and some highlight clips from the Ubuntu Developer Summit that just wrapped up, including some quotes right from the horse's mouth, aka Valve, on why they chose Linux.
Ooh.
That's going to be coming up, and also why Ubuntu is dropping alphas and one of their betas.
Interesting.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did.
So we're going to talk about that. And then we'll top it off with some gaming news, some Fedora challenges, and the climax of the extended 4 file system corruption bug that went around this week.
Oh, boy.
And then at the end of the show, we'll also cover some of your feedback and some questions that you guys have had. So we got a lot to cover.
Stuff,
Big show this week, right?
Huge show. Huge.
But first, it's our pick segment. So why don't we get started with the Runs Linux pick this week, Mr. Matt?
Alrighty.
The Ubicast.
Ubicast.
Runs Linux. Now, this is very germane to today's episode, as I tried to make all of the picks today. This is a studio in a box that runs Linux. Now, I'm a bad person. This was emailed into us a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah?
And I noted down their name, but then I'm drawing a blank on it right now. But the idea is, it's not quite for us, but it's great for like universities or institutions that want to have some pretty slick looking presentations where you got the guy, you got the projector, all his slides.
Okay, so it's very corporate friendly.
Yeah, you want to stream that, you want to record that. That's what this does, and it's all in one box. If you're familiar with the TriCaster,
right?
It's kind of something along those lines.
It's on that same theme. Okay.
Yeah. And they've also got like a suite of products that connect to it. So you have this component, and then you have a whole series of end components that can all integrate with it, all powered by Linux.
That is really awesome. I love the
real-time video stuff is really it's it's not an easy thing to pull off, and because there's so many moving parts and so much crunching is going on, and the disk I/O demands are incredible. Right. So it makes sense why you'd want to compartmentalize like this, and then you connect it with things like they have smartphone apps, so you can connect into the Ubicast with your smartphone app and do like a podcast on the go. So it's great for like corporate podcasting.
I
things
love
like
it.
that.
I love the way they did that. I love the whole setup on it.
Plus Ubicast.
Well, it's got a cool name, right?
That is pretty cool.
Speaking of cool names.
All right, Matt, I have got one of the most interesting Android app picks out there. In fact, I think I'm about to have an app pick that some of you might have thought was not even possible. Yeah. Plus, the desktop app pick, while it's not official, it's finally something I know a lot of you organized geeks out there have been waiting for a long time.
Oh, I'm looking.
So we got a couple of good picks, and of course, I got a great distro. But before we get to all of that, let's say good morning to the fine folks over at GoDaddy.com.
Good morning,
long-time sponsors of the Linux Action
Show.
And of course, I was talking with Danica about her Arch install.
She's rocking Arch now.
Well, I remember I told you off air that she was an Ubuntu user, wasn't a big fan of 12.10's release, thought it was a little dodgy. So then she tried out Cine Arch, hooked.
Oh, you gotta love it.
She loved our pick. So I said, okay, Danica, but here's the thing. I've been helping you out with this, getting things loaded, but could you do me a favor? She says, what's that, Chris? I said, look. People are loving these really low discounts, but I know they expire at the end of October. But look, a .com for $5.99, or taking 20% off the top of anything you buy from GoDaddy. These deals are like, man, it's hard out there. The economy's rough. These deals are crazy. Do you think we could extend that? She says, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? You've been helping me out?
Really?
I'm going to extend those offers for you.
Seriously?
She did it, Matt.
Oh, my God.
Boom! So now we've got the .coms, $5.99 for even longer if you use our code 599Linux when you check out.
That is awesome.
I know. You can't beat that.
Cool.
You can't beat that. Now, look, maybe you don't want to get a .com. Maybe you just want to take 20% off the top of like a renewal. Maybe you're getting yourself some hosting, something like that. Then we've got a code for you. Go 20 off 6.
Love it.
There you go. Go 20 off 6, and you will save 20%.
Gotta love that. That is fantastic.
Or go use our code 599Linux to get a .com for $5.99. And thank you to GoDaddy.com. Longtime support of the Linux Action Show. And you know what I have right here, Matt? I have a testimonial that I'll probably read at a future date here from a Linux Action Show audience member who says, you know what? GoDaddy made my life so much better.
That's awesome.
I love hearing that stuff.
That's
so if you've got,
cool.
if you've done some sort of cool project, like you registered yourself something for your home domain, and now you connect in from work, or something neat you've done with one of your GoDaddy services, email me, Chris at JupiterBroadcasting.com, and tell me about it. All right, Matt. Let's get into this Android pick. This is pretty crazy. Are you ready for this?
Oh, cool. Yes, I'm loving that.
It's called Androvid Trimmer, or Andro Video Trimmer, depending on how you want to read that.
Oh, man.
So this is kind of like you'd expect, and I've played with it a little bit, and I grabbed like a whole bunch this week to try to figure out which ones would be the best for, kind of had the best UI and the best functionality overall.
So awesome.
I really like this one. So as you can probably guess from the name, it's you take video with your phone, and then you can use this to trim it up and clip it, and then export out just the section you want, and you can actually have it encode to a different video file, to a different format.
Or
you can have it strip out just the audio and save that to an MP3 if you've got a video, something like that you want to do. So it's a nice little handy app. And I experimented with it by recording some footage of my kids playing around and then trimming it down a little bit, and it worked really well. And it's super easy to publish online. And if you have a decently fast phone, it'll actually whip through this stuff pretty fast. I gotta be honest, it was chugging on my Evo.
Right. Okay.
It was chugging. It'd probably run better on the new phone you just got yourself, because it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be crazy, but
just some little mid-range guy. Yeah.
And when you're doing exporting too, it will be encoding video, so it will hit the battery. But it actually, I don't know if it's hardware accelerated or what, but the video encoding is pretty good.
It might be hardware. Yeah. It could be.
So
it looks really great. I love the idea of having that built into your phone like that. I mean, that is just dynamite.
Androvid Video Trimmer, and it is free. And there was one I played with that'll kind of do like the Instagram effect in live video.
Oh, no.
And then it offered some trimming support, but I found like the selection ranges and stuff were really dodgy. And that was what a lot of these, like the ones I kind of eliminated, is choosing where you wanted to.
With your fingers at that. Yeah, so you really do need that accuracy.
To get right.
Definitely.
All right, Matt. Now, this next app pick I'm really excited to tell you about. This is for the desktop.
Okay.
You familiar with Evernote?
Oh, yeah.
The what do they call them, like the online brain storage or whatever.
I know people that live in it,
And they've got amazing smartphone apps where you can like take a picture of a sign and then it'll save into Evernote, and then the Evernote service will OCR it and it makes it indexable. Yeah. So like I use it to take pictures of business cards, and I just toss the business card, recipes, anything like that. I also use it when I'm on location doing any kind of video shooting or something like that. So unfortunately, Evernote has never, while they make a fantastic Android app and they make a great iOS app, and that's wonderful. Yeah. And they have a decent web interface, they've never really stepped up to the plate and made a Linux app. And
that is true.
It's always been a...
Yeah, it was. I mean, for Linux users, that was kind of a hurdle. You kind of felt left out of the game a little bit. Yeah.
And I tried Wine.
Right.
No. Tried the web interface. It's just not the same.
It's not the same. It's not natural.
Well, so this is where Everpad comes in, and this is the pick this week. It's called Everpad, and I got to fire it up here. And it is an Evernote client for Linux, and I don't know how blessed this is. I don't think it's all that blessed from the Evernote Corporation, but
that's okay.
I think they've made this a public API to use. So
and that's got its own restrictions and rules. So it may be, blessed to a degree. I wouldn't say it's like outwardly.
You see, so it puts a system tray icon, and then you can get access to your most immediate notes right here, or bring up all notes. The other thing that if you're a Dash user that's nice is it also ties in with Dash, and you get a lens for it. So now I can just type. So like if I take notes about video streaming or something like that, I can search and there's my Ustream notes. If I click on that, it fires up the Evernote pad that I had on the.
That's really tight. I like that. That's very tidy.
Very quick. It's got a rich text editor, so you can do bold and all the kind of things that Evernote sort of supports. And if you take a picture with your smartphone, or if you add a note on your smartphone, it syncs to this right away.
Nice.
Becomes available immediately in Dash.
And that'll pop up in your lens for you.
Yes. Yeah. I like
that. That's
you don't have to have Unity. I mean, you can just use it as a straight up Evernote client. It's a little basic in how it works, but so I kind of prefer the Unity integration, because that I think is kind of the nice like 1-2 combo there.
Yeah,
but
totally.
if you don't have Unity, you can still use it as at least as a front end to get into. Like, here's the notes I took when I did the B3 review for the Linux Action Show, right?
Put all the specs
in there.
Very readable, very tidy.
Yeah, it kept all the formatting. You can see I have bolding here and not bolding there, and it kept the embedded picture, and all the URLs are clickable. And I wrote
That's awesome.
I wrote that years ago, probably on some web UI or something like that. So
that looks really good.
Or not years ago, but at least a while ago. So yeah, there you go. It's Everpad. You can get it for the Linux desktop, and if you are a Unity user, you get the extra bonus of it having a little Dash integration.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, do we need to wait for Evernote to do this? Why? It's already here.
Yeah, and it is.
I mean, for me, if they're using the API, then I don't see a problem.
And on the desktop, a nice, clean, simple interface is actually nice. I don't mind that. In fact, the Evernote client on the other platforms keeps doing all these weird, like, not really just kind of like just fluff stuff, and it's like I just need good, solid note syncing.
And even if they did come out with something for Linux officially, this may still be better.
The syncing has been solid. I've never had an issue with the syncing, and the Android app is just top notch. You can't, you just can't beat that. And it's just a great app. So that's my primary interface for it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, are you ready for the distro pick?
I'm looking for the distro pick.
This one's been sent into the show a couple times, usually with the subject line of, why haven't you guys talked about this? I actually thought we had, and that's why we hadn't. But I looked through the archives, couldn't find it. We've never made this a pick. We haven't really talked about it a lot. And I almost kind of want to nominate it for full-fledged review status.
I think it's worthwhile. I'm actually looking at it very seriously for myself because it's like, ooh, that's pretty.
Yeah. So it's called Paired Linux, and this is Paired Linux 6 just landed, I believe, towards the top of October. And I'd say I'd sum it up as this. It's a 1204 Ubuntu-based desktop, but one of the main things they've done that's sort of compelling is they've taken GNOME 3 and they have a Pear shell on top of that. So it's not like Cinnamon, where Cinnamon is a fork of GNOME 3. They're still sitting on top of vanilla GNOME 3, and they have Pear shell. The other thing that they do, so it's very elegant looking, I should say.
It's gorgeous.
And they kind of have the whole launcher icon dock at the bottom thing, and it looks very well done and all of that.
Well, and I wanted to address something that I've read over and over and over and over every time this Pear is ever brought up. Well, isn't this just like some stuff slapped on top of Ubuntu? Kind of like, and it's like, no, actually, there are some very significant underpinnings that are very different.
Oh, are there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, wasn't that just like just a dock on Ubuntu? No, there's actually shell, and like you said, there's the shell, the Pear shell. There's a lot of underpinning differences.
Right. Well, the other, so the other thing that is rather different that I kind of find compelling is they have a set of applications that sort of replace the canonical applications. Like they have their, see if I think it's on the second page of this. By the way, I'm showing a review here from Linux. bsdos.com. And look at, okay, now, Matt, I find this to be one of the more compelling things about Pear.
That's what sold me right away. It was like, oh, hey, an app store that's
looks really good.
Yeah,
this app store is much, much, much cleaner looking than Ubuntu Software Center. I'd be curious how the performance is, but
it looks like a hybrid between what Linux Mint is rocking and maybe something else. I mean, I'm not sure what that other thing is, but it definitely has a Linux Mint feel to it.
Yeah.
But it's done better. I like especially the top. I love the way that's laid out. It's very clearly easy to find where you're going.
Yeah.
What's going on.
So
you're not getting lost,
They also ship it with Ubuntu tweaks, so they kind of expose more settings to the user up front. So I'd be curious to kind of hear the audience's reaction to Paired Linux. If some of you out there have tried it, and if you think it would be compelling enough for the Linux Action Show, take a look at it, because I'm tempted. I got to say, I really like this app store. I really like the way what they've done with the GNOME shell, because I want to find a really good implementation of GNOME.
Yes.
So we'll see where we go with that.
Might have to put that in the potential queue.
Well, we've put in the feelers out there. We'll see what the feedback is from the folks. You know what I'm saying there, Matt?
Love it.
All right, just a couple of last pieces of business to wrap up before we jump into the news, and then do we have a great news segment. So number one is I want to put this towards the top of the show, because as the holidays approach, it becomes more important than ever. I want to remind folks that one of the ways that we keep our sponsorships down to a minimum, and really what it allows us to do is just pick the sponsors that we really like and the ones that fit and make sense. So we don't have
top tier guys.
We don't have like I'm just gonna say like American Express sponsoring.
Right. Yeah. Like huge. Yeah. The big multinational corporations.
Right.
Like that.
And that would be a little weird. And we're not a good fit anyways. Our content is very niche. We're very geeky, and we cater to a very intelligent audience that a lot of times doesn't buy into the advertising.
Right.
So one of the ways we keep this network on the air is through user contributions. Now you can do that over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate, or there's links at the front page. But the other way, if you want to help us out without impacting your budget, is we have an affiliate system that you can find the links to at the bottom of jupiterbroadcasting.com for Amazon US, UK, Amazon DE, eBay US, Netflix US, which Netflix is a great
it's a no-brainer.
Oh, I got to go over to this family members and I forgot to get them a gift. Oh, I'll get them Netflix.
Damn.
They'll have the email in their inbox by the time I get there. Think Geek, which is great for stocking stuffers in Best Buy, Mint.com, Audible, which they have the most awesome Android app, which now has Whisper Sync between devices.
Audible's a must-have.
I hate that they have DRM on there, but I love the books.
It's seamless enough you don't care.
Yeah. You know? We also have Firefox and Chrome extensions, and if you add those to your browser, they'll automatically tag your shopping session, and they will also tag it for more than what we have linked down there at the bottom of the site, like Monoprice is in there, and other countries are in there. I mention these from time to time, but I just try to step it up because this really does help us keep us going, and we really appreciate it, and we hope you keep us in mind while you're shopping during the holiday season.
It's appreciated.
Also, a shout out to our subreddit this week. Some great conversations in there around the extended fort bug. Got a little hot under the collar a couple of times.
Oh my gosh.
But linuxactionshow.reddit.com is where you can find a lot of extra links to things we talk about and even more stuff than what made it into the show.
Yep. Good stuff.
There you go. All right, Matt, with all that stuff done, I think that means it's time to do the news. So,
what's new in the news?
All right, Matt, we got a big news docket this week. Our top story in the news docket, Disney buys the Star... Wait, what? No, I'm just kidding. We're going to start off with the Valve news this week. So the Ubuntu Developers Conference just wrapped up, and Valve was there. And as we speculated, they gave out beta access to attendees. I don't believe they've received it yet, but they will be.
Yeah. They're farther ahead than we are.
Yeah, there was quite a round of applause when they announced that. Drew Bliss from Valve was there, and he got quite the hearty response.
I'll bet.
So, all right, well, let's talk about some of the things that Valve announced, because I think even non-Ubuntu users are going to find some of this stuff really interesting. So, as we did speculate, Valve gave away access to the attendees, and they're going to be receiving their... what I found interesting is Canonical will be handing out their beta keys to them, not Valve.
Well, that is interesting.
Yeah, Canonical is going to be doing on behalf of Valve.
That's a very deep tie-in then. Okay.
Yeah. They're also a Canonical employee during the Q&A segment asked about DRM.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
And asked whether Steam for Linux would bring DRM or copy protection with it. Bliss confirmed that no industrial strength copy protection would be required by them, though developers were free to choose any copy protection system they wish, as they are now.
That seems fair. So basically what they're saying is, look, we're not going to do it ourselves, but if the developers of want to do it, that's their business. Okay,
Yeah.
Oh, that's reasonable.
Here's something else that's some good news. We also now have confirmation that the Steam beta will have Portal, Team Fortress 2, Serious Sam, and Left 4 Dead. So we're going to have a few games in there. So that'll be really cool. Now I'm kind of blasting through a couple of the things because we've got some quotes directly from the horse's mouth. And once again, while Drew was there, he reiterated that Linux was more viable than Windows 8 for gaming.
Oh, yeah. I think that to me is that speaks volumes. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so Drew Bliss, he didn't actually have a very long talk, and so I've gone through and I've picked out a few of the moments in the YouTube videos that I thought were sort of more interesting.
Kind of interesting to get some hearing on there.
Yeah, and we'll have links to the full videos if folks want to check those out. But why don't we play a couple of clips here from Drew at UDS, and in this first one, I think he's talking about why they chose Linux, but let's see.
And I continue developing on open platforms, and so we're looking around, and obviously Linux has become a very viable alternate platform. So we are now looking into doing Steam for Linux and supporting as many of our Steam platform games for Linux as we can. The work is ongoing right now, and the Steam client is essentially running on Ubuntu, and we have a number of partners that are starting to port games, and we're actually very happy with the progress that has been made there. Now, people, of course, have...
Well, that's actually good enough right there.
Yep. Okay.
So he kind of goes on to say that, he kind of jokes about maybe beta access rolling out in early 2013. And I was like, oh, don't do that. I want it sooner than that. But that was sort of, after I watched that, I thought, maybe we have a little longer to wait than we wanted to.
Well, and as I countered earlier when we were talking about it, if they can produce it better and make it a more viable experience in the long run by taking a few extra months, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly cool with that.
You were saying that on the pre-show. We do this show live on Sundays at 10 a.m. Pacific, which has just good thing for. I'm thankful for smartphones because the clock action kind of happens automatically for you. All right, so this clip is more directly about why Linux, and then he specifically goes into why Ubuntu and why not say Fedora or something like that.
We expect that people will run Steam on all kinds of things. That we aren't going to have a lock in the Steam.
Oh, YouTube keeps crapping out on us here, Matt. What do you think of that, huh? Come on, YouTube.
To use your solution for copy protection.
Well, crap. Geez, that's a bummer. So I'll see if I can load that again.
This is the part of the show where we remind folks that they have these plugins that you can download.
Linux usage.
Right?
It's just open platform alive.
Here we go.
Right? If Microsoft goes the way Apple has, and Windows and Macintosh are both completely closed ecosystems, then really Linux is the best alternative for everybody. So we want to help that be as good a platform as possible. I mean, that helps us, it helps everybody. So there is some self-interest there, but also, like I said, we do have an interest just in giving back, in a sense, because Steam came around because we had an open platform with no requirements, and we want to make sure that people have that same opportunity in the future. The reason we chose Ubuntu as a way to start is obviously it's difficult to span all of Linux, the variations and everything with one particular development effort. So we looked around and we were like, all right, which distributions have a broad user base and they have a strong organization backing them and they have a strong community? And Ubuntu was a very obvious choice. They're, of course, it's very widely used. Canonical is great, a large company that is very interested in moving the platform forward and improving it, and then the community, all you guys, is very, very interested in it too. So Ubuntu was a very simple choice for us to make, and it's actually been going very well so far, and we're very happy with the cooperation with Canonical.
There you go.
And like I said, it's nice that I can come here.
So that's why they chose Ubuntu. We'd kind of theorized that it was a combination of community, it was a combination of commercial backing and things like that. Now, I already played a little bit of this clip, but I just wanted to give people a chance. I want them to hear it from Drew Bliss directly from Valve that Valve will not be taking any steps to block other Linux distributions.
Well, that's cool. I think that's important.
We expect that people will run Steam on all kinds of things. That we aren't going to have a lock in the Steam client to say if you don't run on this exact version of Linux, stop. There will be certain blocks to try to prevent you from running against bad drivers and that kind of thing, but we are expecting people to run it on all kinds of non-Ubuntu, whatever mix of thing they happen to come up with. Support across all of that is a different question. We probably won't be able to give much support for arbitrary distributions. We will probably confine our support to LTS releases or a small set of releases.
There you go.
And
then they, of course, it's funny because they already asked him, well, what about Arch support?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that was huge at UDS this year was Ubuntu on the Nexus 7, right?
Right.
Because it's the Ubuntu desktop. It's not a Ubuntu version for the Nexus 7.
It's a full-on deal, right?
But they're just trying to optimize it, and that was so the ARM was a popular topic. Now, so again, we'll link to the full interviews if you'd like. I want to play another clip here. This clip is from Jason Warner. He's the desktop manager for the Ubuntu project. So the buck stops with this guy when it comes to the Ubuntu desktop release. And he was asked, "How are you working with Valve?"
Yes, your team is tasked with the desktop experience. So there's like a lot hanging on the line here. So talk a little bit how you guys have been working with.
Sure.
With Valve to make this awesome.
So we have a couple people in the desktop team specifically actually working with Valve on a daily basis, and the Unity 3D folk as well who are here, Unity Technologies. obviously everyone loves gaming and
Right.
gaming on the desktop, and we talked about it as
Right.
some points of validation. It's just
So when you say Unity 3D, the desktop or the game engine?
the game engine, Unity
Okay.
Technologies.
Okay.
And so, again, it's just another point of validation. We have two huge gaming companies that want to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we are engaging with them to help them actively resolve issues. We're looking at it as a partnership. So we have someone on our X side and who's helping Valve and talking to them in resolving driver issues. We've got them talking about how we can get drivers to the users in a much cleaner fashion or easier for them an easier way so that we don't have to worry about incompatibilities and things like that. So it's an exciting time because they have a very specific set of requirements, and so it pushes us to do certain things and to think about things a little differently. So I think it's been beneficial both ways.
And then overall, even if you're not a gamer, this will improve the quality of drivers in general.
Oh, absolutely.
And things like
just
that.
our relationship with the upstream driver companies at this point has gotten, I think, a lot stronger.
There you go.
So,
So they
one of
actually
the
have
most popular
people that are
sessions-
dedicated in the Ubuntu desktop team that are working with Valve on a daily basis on prepping this for this release. So that's pretty huge.
Yeah, I think it's very significant. And, you
Yeah.
know, for those that are, in fact, concerned about the other distributions, they did talk about that as well. They're not
Yeah.
blocking anything. So, oh my gosh, it's not available for my distro. Relax. It'll work itself out. If the developers for those distributions feel passionate enough about it, they'll work something out.
Yeah, and you know, they talk a lot in the talks. Drew Bliss goes into a little bit how they're really just using, you know, they're using SDL, OpenGL, OpenAL. You know, they're working with Intel, they're working with NVIDIA, they're working with ATI.
Right.
So all of this stuff really is going to work for every distribution.
Exactly.
But in terms of targeted support and all that kind of stuff, they're focusing on Ubuntu, much like Lightworks is doing, like what we're going to talk about
It's
today.
exactly like Lightworks. It's kind of like the Fedora versus Red Hat thing, you know, or not Fedora, the CentOS versus Red Hat stuff. You know, it's like it's basically the same animal. It's just where the support's going.
Yeah.
You know, no worries.
All right, so I just want to give a reminder to folks. I forgot who mentioned in our subreddit, but we do have a Steam group, a Jupiter Broadcasting Steam group at steamcommunity.com/groups/Jupiter Broadcasting. We'll have a link for that in the show notes. If you want to join, we've got 81 members so far. So when they do roll it out for Linux, you can game with your fellow Linux Action
Love
Show
that.
and Jupiter Broadcasting audience members. All right, Matt. Well, before we completely wrap up from the Ubuntu Developer Summit this week, Nexus 7 was big there. You know, I think there's a lot of excitement. I felt bad. Mark seemed a little bummed out from some of the harsh reviews on 12.10.
He did, but I was impressed that he said, you know, he stepped up and actually confronted it. That's all I wanted, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
So I support that. That's cool.
So, let's talk about Ubuntu dropping their alphas and one of their betas.
Yep.
So the release schedule will drop all alphas and the very first beta, resulting in a beta and then a final release milestone only. In addition, the freezes have been moved back a few weeks. The end result is the archive will not be frozen until late in the cycle, allowing development and testing to continue unencumbered. This, of course, is for Ubuntu only. Flavors will now have complete control over their releases, so they can choose when to test and freeze. ISOs will automatically be smoke tested before releasing through a new set of automated testing. Cadence. Rather than milestones, bi-weekly cadence of testing will occur while the goal of assuring good quality throughout the release cycle. So instead of trying to target for the beta release, just on a bi-weekly cadence.
That's interesting. I'm fascinated to see how that's going to pan out. I think that's really fascinating.
So, since they did post a lot of this good stuff from the Developer Summit, why not find out directly from the horse's mouth? This is the release engineering and QA team manager from Canonical. Why they are dropping their alphas?
This is good.
One of the things we've done this cycle is we've removed all our alpha milestones, and we've removed a beta out of the schedule. Every time we would do that, we effectively shut down development for a week. While archive was frozen, you couldn't upload anything, images were being built, images were being tested. That's a week of time lost. And when you add that up, that comes up to 4 weeks in the development cycle. So we've given that back. And the only reason we could do that was by the quality initiatives that we've put in place to ensure we have a daily working installable ISO or image every day. Some of the other things.
I think that's good. So what he's saying they're doing now is the daily ISO that would sometimes be like don't download that.
Yeah,
don't download that daily ISO. It could be completely broken, right? Well, now what they're saying is that they're making efforts to make sure that it goes through what they're calling automated smoke testing. That every release there won't be any stow shoppers. In fact, they even have automated processes to test out GUI functionality and things like that. So we'll see.
Well, and it sounds good. I loved what he said when he said we're giving back those 4 weeks of frozen testing.
That's an interesting way to think of it, isn't
it? Well,
and
it's true. I mean, really, if anything, it could very well, if done properly, produce better results. And I think that's awesome if they can pull that off.
I'm nervous.
Rocket, guys.
I'm nervous, but because it also seems like a great way to not catch some serious issues.
Well,
but
I don't think they need any help there. I think they've definitely already managed to bug out more.
Yeah.
So I think they only can go up from here.
And at least they're not introducing this during an LTS.
And their bugs are not as severe as they used to be. They used to be really bad. And so I think we'll be okay.
I think so. And
I think we'll be okay.
And as they work out for 13, as they work this stuff out, by the next time they're on 14.04 or whatever it's going to be, they'll have it down.
Oh yeah, totally.
All right. Speaking of bugs. The extended 4 bug, quote unquote, has been patched. Now, this has gotten a lot of different ranging coverage. So here is the bug fix coming from. This is an email to the Linux kernel mailing list from Linus Torvalds. I don't recognize Torvalds. I don't recognize.
Liney turtles.
No,
not limey turtles. No, not limey turtles.
Linux Travis. I can't.
Linux Travis.
Don't recognize
Clearly, it's Linux Travis.
Yeah. He goes on to say that it's a bug fix for Ted's Extended 4 issue that came up. This freeze fixes the root cause of the Extended 4 data corruption bug, which raised a ruckus on LWN, Phoronix, and Slashdot. This bug only showed up when non-standard mount options, the journal sync commit and/or journal checksum, were enabled, and when the file system was not cleanly unmounted. But the root cause was the inode bitmap modification was not being properly journaled. This could potentially lead to minor file system corruptions. And he goes on to say that after an unclean shutdown under the wrong, unlucky workloads, but it turned into a major failure if the journaled checksum and or journaled async commit was enabled. So this I want to talk about.
Okay, let's talk
First
about it.
of all, there's a wide range of reactions. So Theodore, or I'm not sure if I'm getting his last name right, or Ted, the committer that is directly responsible for these kinds of things with the Extended 4 file system, obviously I would say reacted very badly to this whole thing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Now his primary assertion is that news sites like Phoronix and Slashdot and Linux Weekly took what was a minor issue and just ran with it and made it a much bigger thing, causing panic and uncertainty.
Well, and that's what, that's the definition of FUD, and that's also what news sites do, is they report the information. And I didn't think that they, talked about it in a way that was really making it sound worse than it really was.
No,
they stated the facts and said, here it is. People are going to be people and interpret it the way they want to.
If like the Slashdot headline was possible corruption issue, and the Phoronix was could be an issue, and things like they're very gentle headlines.
Yeah. It's not like it said Godzilla's coming out to get you or something. It's not some crazy nut job type thing. It was really basic. I don't see the issue, honestly.
Theodore took to the web, and I felt like I don't know. I felt like there's not an appreciation for how serious a file system thing can be, even if it's something minor. Like he made this meme that said the Extended 4 data corruption bug rarely happens. Really? Don't panic. And that's cute. That is cute. But if you are a user who's suffering from some sort of issue, to have the maintainer of that software kind of making a cutesy meme kind of shows that maybe he's not fully appreciating the situation. Also, the language he used. I suppose I should be glad the potential Extended 4 corruption that has 2 users have mentioned reportedly impacting 362, and 363 has promoted some minor increase in revenue for Slashdot and Phoronix. But really, people should just chill out.
I think it's developer by developer, and some developers are really awesome people, and some developers can be really arrogant.
I don't want to...
And so maybe he fits in the middle there somewhere. I don't know. He came across, to me, as rather arrogant about it.
It does, and I don't want to be down on somebody who works on a great part of the Linux kernel and is something that is, fundamental to the system, but I can't help but feel like, first of all, having a file system bug, even if it's super minor and super rare, is like got to be one of the worst bugs you can have. It doesn't get much worse than that.
It affects your data.
It's worse than crashing. It's worse than the crashing bug because it causes data corruption and loss.
Exactly, and that's something you really can't just undo. I mean, sure, you can back stuff up, but even then, is it safe? Did it work?
And so when you have a significantly important server distribution. Right. And by the way, this flaw ended up getting backported into kernels that were shipped as stable.
Right.
We're talking this made it back. So this was backported. Right. So this wasn't just the bleeding edge stuff as he infers in his post. Right. And if you have a significant server operating system that has a file system corruption bug in what has become stable kernels now, yes, maybe Red Hat hadn't shipped that kernel yet, but other distributions had. That's a big issue. Yeah. That's the kind of story that news sites follow.
Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
exactly what they do. Just like if Mac OS X 8.2 shipped with a very, very rare file system corruption bug, it would be all over the net. Or if Windows 8 shipped with a file system corruption bug, it would explode. That's what happens with this type of stuff.
Exactly. We're not ripping on so much on the event. We're ripping on the reaction to it by its maintainer. Really.
And then he goes on.
And that's what really rubbed me the wrong way.
Even after it's come up that, okay, maybe Ted hasn't reacted properly. Other people are reporting this. It does seem more common. And I will point out also, in both of these posts, he takes stabs at Canonical. He takes well, apparently Ubuntu doesn't clean down properly, so this affects Ubuntu users more because their distribution can't figure out how to shut down. And then like the second comment in the thread is, well, actually, I'm on Arch and I'm having the same issue.
Exactly.
You know, and then in another post he takes a shot at, well, the problem with this type of stuff is Launchpad because just anybody can toss in there and throw a comment. And yes, that is true, and that does generate a lot of noise, but it also tells you a lot of people are having the issue. So then his November 1st post, Phronix, alas, has perpetrated another example of irresponsible journalism. I won't dignify said article with a web link since I don't want to reward them with more ad hits, so I'll link to the original Ubuntu Launchpad report and include the comment I just made there. Now, I totally get like you have an emotional investment in this project.
Sure.
You know, your name's out there. This is just what news sites do, and you just kind of come across as insensitive to the whole issue.
Well, and where he lost me completely is I do not have any tolerance for anyone that comes up and says, oh, well, because I disagree with you or because I think you are overreacting, you're perpetrating irresponsible journalism. Baloney.
Right. He says
you disagree with it. You have an opinion.
Exactly. He disagrees. He disagrees that it's a big issue. I think it's a big issue.
Yeah.
I think even if it's super minor and only affected 2 users and it was only under extremely rare mount options, that's still a big issue. It's still data corruption with a production file system.
Exactly.
This isn't Btrfs. This is extended for a shipping file system.
Exactly.
He goes on to say, I will say that it's extremely irresponsible of Phronix to make a big deal about this before giving anyone knowledgeable, which unfortunately does not include any... here's a dig. Before giving anyone knowledgeable, and then he puts in parentheses, which unfortunately does not include any Ubuntu kernel engineers, since as far as I know, they don't have any file system specialists on staff to comment on the bug. No one from Phronix even bothered to contact me to tell me they were posting this story or to ask me for comment. I had to find out about it when somebody asked me to comment on Google+. That's because everything you do is in the public and transparent in mailing lists.
Right.
They just have to watch the mailing list.
Exactly. Now, even that, I will throw him a bone on that and say, I can understand his frustration with that piece of it, even though I may not totally agree with it.
I can too.
And the bigger picture is here. Why are we blowing this into such a big deal? Why is this such a big deal to us? It's not necessarily the fact that, the kernel bug is certainly, an issue, but it's the public image of what it is to the end user watching this go back and forth. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what any of this means. And they're thinking, and I'm trusting this operating system. It's not a very professional public image, and it doesn't make any of us look very good. That's why this is such a big deal, and that's why we're so passionate about it, in addition to the granular issue of this is your file system. It's a big deal.
And I think Ted's retort to that would be, well, then maybe they should have reported on it until we knew more. That way we didn't have that public image created. And he even said, I have a link in the mailing list, and there he said, this is really an issue with the open source development process, because if this was Apple or Microsoft, all this would have been handled behind closed doors and nobody would have known about it. Yeah. And that to me seems like, well, then I wouldn't have been embarrassed, is kind of what he's saying a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he has every right to be as frustrated as he wants to be, but it's how you present it to the public professionally that matters.
Every response he made as well, this seems really rare, or I can't reproduce it.
That's weak.
It wasn't like fully appreciating it, but then at the same time, I mean, they really did jump on it and they did hustle to get it fixed, and they've submitted a patch. I mean, so it felt like they weren't taking it seriously, and at the same time, they were sort of blaming the news cycle for covering. I mean, we talked about it. Exactly. It was interesting to follow, and that's what happens. And now people conclude with, it looks like it wasn't that major of an issue. everything's really going to be fine.
Well, and I would wrap this up with saying, basically, in my view of it, this doesn't negate the fact that we appreciate the work that he does on this. That does not negate that at all. What it does mean is that the presentation matters, and accidents happen. That's okay.
Yeah.
But don't get butthurt over something that happens. Everybody makes mistakes. Say, well, obviously zigged when it should have zagged. We've addressed it. Moving on. No big deal. New sites do this. This is what they do. That's what they're for. They light a fire under your butt so things like this get fixed faster.
Well, that's true too, right? You got to wonder.
I'm just saying. So
because you could tell he was very nonchalant about the issue, and you got to wonder if there wasn't the media storm, if there would have been a lot of heat there. Good point, Matt.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about Fedora 18 because they've actually hit a few delays, and to be nice to the old Fedora folks, we really haven't brought up the delays in the betas because don't want to kick them when they're having a hard time. But when there's enough delays, they kind of stack up. It's worth mentioning because Fedora 18 was scheduled to originally be released next week. And right now we're looking at probably a mid-December, like December 18th is that.
Right. Yeah,
So Fedora 18 has been challenged by yet another delay. Among the active blockers right now are bugs not showing the BIOS RAID on the hard drive selection screen and other Anaconda installer issues because they're redoing a ton of Anaconda, or maybe completely redoing it. The Kickstart package selection at current is not working. Obviously, that makes it hard to install. And a problem making the Btrfs file system. So it's a pretty significant challenge.
It's significant. First of all, huge props to these guys for saying, hold up, let's fix this stuff before we release it. I cannot tell you how awesome that is and how much I respect that so much.
Yeah.
That being said, you guys got your work cut out for you, and I hope it all works out because it sounds like you got a lot.
So let's just kind of review here what some of the things that the Fedora 18 has coming up. So let's not forget 256 colors in the terminals. They're doing a lot of cloud computing improvements. I know that sounds nebulous, but it's everything from OpenStack to all the other stuff.
Yep.
The new Anaconda installer, like I mentioned, offline updates via systemd and package kit. That's really cool. They also have the new XL Spice KMS driver. Got to have that. And the new KDE 4.9 XFCE 4.10. And they're going to support Secure Boot. And there's a bunch of other features. Here's something that's even more interesting. It's very unofficial at this point. It may absolutely go nowhere. But Fedora has once again, this time coming from a Red Hat engineer, started on the mailing list talking and kicking around the idea of switching to a rolling distribution, rolling release Fedora.
That might be a good fit for them. I really admire what they're doing with their work, and I think that, if this solves some of their problems so that they can address the things that are holding the entire thing back, then that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it fits because Fedora, they even say, we're cutting edge. We're bleeding edge. And you're like, well, no, Arch and Gentoo are bleeding edge. Right. You're kind of like, you're cute. I mean, you're good, Fedora, and you do some great stuff, but if you want bleeding edge, I've got Arch. And this has always been kind of like the thing with Fedora. It's like, boy, if I really want that, I got these other guys.
That's true.
If they go rolling release, not only then do I kind of get my familiar CentOS / Red Hat Enterprise Linux environment, but I get cutting edge packages. I can stay on top of what's coming down the pipe real easily. I think it could be a good fit for them.
I think so, yeah. And are they saying they're cutting edge or bleeding edge? What's their definition?
I don't remember.
Because there's a fine line.
Yeah, good point, right?
Because if they're technically, they're cutting edge. Ubuntu's cutting edge. Bleeding edge would be Arch. Bleeding edge would definitely be Arch because it's just like, bam, there it is, bam, there it is. It's like instantaneous, so, yeah.
All right, Matt, I want to just blast through a couple of games that we have coming to Linux via Kickstarters. Now, we covered actually part 1 of this a couple of weeks ago, but now part 2 and 3 have been posted. Video games that are coming to Linux via Kickstarter projects. I just thought we'd run down a couple of them real quick, just as kind of like a list. Wasteland is coming, Wasteland in its evolution, and you can get the interview here over at overclockers.com. And I know, and it's looking really good. And they talk about some of the technology, and then also Folktale.
Folktale, huh?
Which is a city builder, real-time strategy type game.
That could be fun.
Yep, powered by Unity, and we just heard that the Ubuntu desktop guys are working with the Unity guys all the time. Does look good, and there's a new release of Unity this week, a new preview release that adds even more Linux publishing support for a bunch of more features in Linux. So a lot of these games are just any of these games that are really using Unity now. Yeah. Linux is becoming just a publishing target for them. It's not completely there yet, but the Unity folks are working really hard to get it there.
Cool.
So if you want to read about these games and see if you want to toss in a little money, they overclockers.com has a great write-up that you can get an interview with those guys.
I say, I think it's great.
I probably have thrown into 3 or 4 Kickstarter games.
Yeah.
FTL was one of them. I've got that now, and there was another one that there's been a few that I've thrown in some money for, and it's like if they look like they're going the right direction, or you can read these interviews and see if they've got like the right stuff behind them. Why not? You get the game for a good price. You're helping fund Linux development. That's kind of the great thing about it.
I think it's an awesome idea. What better way to bring games to Linux?
Yes. All right. So go check out all the links to all of that stuff in the show notes, including the Ubuntu Developers YouTube channel, where you can see even more interviews, including interviews with the Xubuntu release guy and also the Kubuntu release manager, which are up there, and that's really cool of Canonical to post those because they're good quality video.
Really
and,
awesome. Yeah.
You know, there's FUDCon and things like that, but I never really see any videos come back from it. But these, they were just boom right there. They live streamed a lot of it too,
and it looks good. I mean, there's some good commentary.
Yes.
Good.
All right, Matt. Well, that's all the news for this week. Let's go talk about Lightworks. All right, Matt, it's time to talk about Lightworks, which not a lot of people have their hands on, but you were one of the lucky ducks.
They do not. My understanding is that there are approximately 200 people, give or take, that are actually working on the alpha of this application, and I was chosen. Luckily, I got my name in at the right time and probably was just in the right place at the right list. Yeah, I got a copy of it, so we are going to look at it.
And we're keeping in mind, it's very early days for this project, and also our experience with it, very early days. My background in video editing is primarily in Sony Vegas, Adobe Premiere, and extensively in Final Cut 7 and Final Cut 10. And then I've experimented with a few of the others, like, of course, KDN Live and Open, a lot of the different editors. I don't need to list them all off.
Yeah. And my experience with editors is basically Premiere, OpenShot, and KDN Live. So,
So we have some familiarity, but Lightworks is not one of them on either one of our lists, so we're going to keep that in mind for our review too. But we know this is something a lot of people have been wanting to get their hands on, so we're going to give you our first look at it. Now, before we get into that, I want to say thank you to System76 for sponsoring this segment of the Linux Action Show. It occurs to me, Matt, if you want a mobile editing rig on the go, and with Lightworks coming, this is becoming a real possibility. I got to say, the Gazelle Professional, with its super high res and massively beautiful color accuracy.
Gorgeous.
I mean, people rave about the color accuracy of this screen, and it's got a gorgeous 1080p display on there. Very, very nice. Would be a great video editing mobile powerhouse.
Well, the fact you can uptick your graphics options a little bit, just enough to where you can get that power you're looking for, but still be mobile friendly. That's always nice. You're not just chewing through battery life.
Although I still really want that news.
The all-in-one's just sexy.
Wouldn't it be great, Matt, if that was here today and we could have tried that on that? If only we had
it would be awesome.
Yeah. Thank you to System76 for supporting the Linux Action Show. If you want a trouble-free Linux box, go grab one of those. I'm getting one soon.
And they do ship internationally. It just varies where you live, so go check it out.
All right, so let's take a look at Lightworks. We've got it loaded up on our computer here, and let's just start with our first impression.
Yeah.
Very unique UI.
Very unique. It felt a little bit like Lives meets what's this? I always get this wrong. Cinelara.
Yeah.
It feels like Lives meets Cinelara. I mean, it's what it strikes me as. But what was interesting is the speed.
It's very fast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and even working with challenging files here.
Wow.
So if you're watching the video version, you're going to get the extra sheet. For you audio folks, I'll try to break it down for you as much as I can. In the import screen here, you just start off, as an editor, I like the technical details I get right here. I can see, here's my 3 clips. I see what codec they are. I see this is a 240p file, so I know that it's a, it's a progressive file. It's 4:3. I can see that it's an AVC HD codec. There's its frame rate and its file size, and I can just grab those. Maybe I can grab them both and import them into my editor. So there, boom, right? So I can go grab another file now. But let's just start with that. So I've got a Computer Chronicles file right here.
All right.
You can see this. They call this whole thing. They call it. What do they call this?
The browser.
They call it like the window or the desktop. Like they have.
Oh, okay.
They have this whole thing is all of the UI elements.
That's right. It's like basically it's an environment that they've created for you, so you're not distracted with all the other widgets going on.
And each editor can have their own environment, and you lay out stuff where you want it. And they obviously there's moments just I've been playing with this, Matt, where it seems like this from the very get-go has collaboration in mind.
It does. Well, and another fascinating aspect of it was when you were setting this up, it said, hey, what kind of layout would you like? Would you like a Final Cut Pro layout? Or would you like a,
the traditional Lightworks?
Which is interesting.
And you see they have fields in here where I can bring up the clip info, and they call it the time card, which is sort of a traditional, vernacular.
Yeah, right.
And you can put notes in there and say, oh, yeah, this is the clip where he trips when he walks in. And you can put little... little notes in there, and then it'll associate that with that file, and then the next time the next editor sits down, they can pull that up and they can see the clips about that.
That's handy.
Which is really neat. The other thing that it struck out at me is just with my early playing with it is I'm playing with this Computer Chronicles file here, right? And the Computer Chronicles. This is an AVC HD H.264 file, an MP4 file. Most video editors are not capable of whipping through files like this without
massive slowdown.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent editors that do GPU acceleration can do it now. But the editors that are sort of, it's generally because of the math involved in decoding and detecting all of the individual frames in an MP4 file. The way MP4 files work is they have these markers that say there's probably X amount of frames between this spot and that spot, and then another marker that says, all right, well now that you're here, you probably got another X amount of frames.
Makes sense.
Well, a video editor needs to be able to edit every single frame.
Right.
And so if you have an MP4 file that doesn't actually straight up identify every single frame,
you get drop frames?
It's not just that it's decompressing the video, it's that it has to do real-time math and figure out where each and every one of those frames are. And if you think about it, how fast I'm whipping this around and how fast it's doing that math, and it's not even pegging my system.
Is it fair to say that that's how that, when you see dropped frames occurs, that generally how that occurs?
Can be.
Okay,
Yep.
because I've seen that happen with some editors.
Could be the computer like losing its brain on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so we'll bring in another clip here, and I'll show you a little more. So now, one of the things that I did set it is I set it to use the Final Cut keyboard layout, because that's what I'm more familiar with, right? So I can just mark my in points and I can mark my out points right here in here, and I can in my editor here I can add another track, hopefully. And now that I've marked my in and out points, I just drag that video clip down here. We'll say yes, add it, and I can say add it to the top, which is nice. I like how it lets you choose that. And now that I've marked my in and out on that, on which clip was it? The CD-ROM one, right?
CD-ROM.
Now when I drag it down to my timeline, you see it brings down just the section that I marked in and out.
That's slick.
Very, standard stuff there, but very easy to figure out. I just pick this
For
up.
a Linux editor, this is slick.
I'm already kind of familiar with how to do this, and now I can extend it past the marked in and out that I did, or anything like that. And I can just disable the tracks below it, tracks above it. Very
Then you got your
nice.
usual zoom in and out, and I believe I've spotted undo and redo.
Yes,
to the
yes,
far right.
Yes,
so that is cool.
That was something I ran into earlier when I was testing. You can join clips together, which is really nice, and you can then let's add an effect here. What do you say we do, maybe a push effect?
Yeah,
to
let's
this
check
guy?
that out.
Now, how do you suppose we do that?
I would imagine
Add.
it's...
All right. Oh, okay. So then right up here at the bat, you can keyframe when it comes in and comes out. That's nice.
That's tidy. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that is actually really nice.
That's very tidy.
So this is interesting because I could see how I would need to edit my workflow.
Right.
And how I
you'd have
operate.
to kind of adjust how you do things. Yeah,
Almost
sure.
more like the order of how I do them.
Right.
I would have to change, but I could see, gosh, the primary thing here that now I kind of have to wonder is, let's look at the export options.
Yeah, no, that matters.
So I can see, I could do it to include the video media. Yeah, I want that. Include the audio media. Yeah, I want that. Okay, I can see, I don't want to go to var lib though. That doesn't seem like a very good place.
Yeah, no, it's not very
How about my desktop? So it's got my desktop in there, and the name will be automatic. Okay, now it is. Well, I'm not sure what it exported, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's exporting. No, export is complete. What I want to know is what formats. Now I know that for Windows you can export to a lot of different formats. So I don't know where that's at on this.
And again, because this is alpha, it's very possible that they have not integrated the export options out yet.
Oh, here we go. No, I just missed it in the menu.
Okay.
So here I can change it. I can choose image sequence, MOV, MXF, which would be for exchanging with another editor, or AVC HD, which would be H.264. Or if you can also say what are your targets, and this is interesting, Matt. Look at this. It's got presets in here for Blu-ray and DVD.
Okay, that's pretty helpful.
Oh yeah. Okay. So now that I choose
Now we have
Blu-ray,
the meat potatoes.
now I'm going H.264. I'm going 1080p video. Oh yeah. See now we're talking.
This is like what you'd find in OpenShot Kit in Life. It's got those same
yeah,
level of
right
features
out
there.
to a video file that you want. Yeah, this is great. This
Although I
is great.
think the controls here is quite a bit more granular than.
Yeah.
substantially
Look,
more
I mean, you
granular.
can
That's
set
pretty-
you can set a lot of different options.
Now you're getting into some pretty. heavy
including
stuff.
look at this stereoscopic 3D options.
Yeah, that stuff. That is just what
It's got 3D
hell?
support.
Seriously,
That's great.
LAS in 3D.
All right, so now let's do a Blu-ray file, and but we do not need 1080p. Let's just say we'll do 720p. We're gonna upconvert this 240p file to a 720p file, and we'll make it 29 frames per second, H.264 to my desktop. I'm gonna hit start. Let's see what happens. Oh, you get a frame-by-frame rendering preview
that's
too.
nice.
That's nice. So Final Cut, when you're rendering, it doesn't tell you what frame it's on. You just get a progress bar, and you don't really know.
Yeah, and that's obnoxious. But this is nice.
Yeah, and now it's hitting my CPU a little harder. It says it's going to take 24 minutes to.
And that's just, and of course, anytime you're rendering. It's all about your CPU.
Yeah, definitely. And this is in a VM.
Yeah. So yeah. So obviously, if we happen to have this running on the other,
actually,
that'd be fine.
Look at that. The performance is near real time.
Yeah.
That is
it's
almost
not bad for a VM.
it is almost encoding because it's about a 30-minute file. It is encoding that at real time. That's
important. Actually, that kind of matters because again, that's where you don't have those oopsies and mistakes or the little smudges.
I would be curious. So, like Rikai in the IRC chat room is asking about what's their state of their GPU acceleration. I'm not sure. I got to based on its performance.
I believe it's either there or on its way.
It's gotta be.
I know that, and I don't want to. I didn't do any NDAs or anything like that, so it's not a big deal. But I do know that there's some stuff that hasn't been implemented yet, and there's with every little I don't want to say nightly build, but like every other night build that they put out, there's things that they've corrected or fixed or added. So if it isn't there currently, it will be. I would be shocked if it wasn't. So I would pretty much plan on it.
Now I would need to spend hours with this to really get a full clear picture. But I can tell you, just as we've been sitting here, Matt, I've sort of transformed it into how I have Final Cut laid out.
Yeah.
But even in doing so, I've already got a multi-track project. I've got ins and outs of spots.
Yeah.
I can definitely see this working. And while OpenShot and all that is really, really good, the thing that's sort of unique about Lightworks is there's a very established user base today that could just sort of pick up. Move to Linux using Lightworks.
Exactly. Existing Hollywood folks can literally because this fills in their whole screen, they don't even know they're on Linux.
It really does go.
I mean,
full
really,
screen,
because
right?
you if it's already on for them, they're not going to know. They're just going to be like, oh, that's Lightworks. Okay, whatever.
And you kind of look
keyboard
at like
shortcuts are the same. Doesn't matter.
Drew Bliss from Valve was talking about how they need to move Steam to Linux because the open platform is going away. Well, you got to figure that's how Lightworks looks at it too. If they can't distribute an application like this through the Windows 8 store, and they're not going to be able to distribute an application like this through the Apple store. Plus, over there they're competing with Final Cut, which is on their home turf. So this is another example of the vendor who sort of, without other options, is now moving to Linux, but they're not doing it half-assed. This really. I mean, for an alpha, this is really impressive.
Yeah. What really strikes me is it also pushes forward the idea that it's not about the platform. It's about the software and the tools and the functions that we're doing on the platform. And so as we said that for a video editor, it's like a good example is like my wife using Photoshop. She uses the platforms that support that software. She doesn't care what it is. She wants her shortcuts, she wants her functionality, and she wants her Photoshop. You do that, we're good. Same thing with Lightworks.
Right.
A Lightworks user is not going to care what platform's on. Does it run well? Is it stable? And is my workflow the same as what I was using Lightworks previously? If it is, they're good. They're good to go because that machine's probably going to be used almost exclusively for Lightworks. So I think that they get it and they realize they don't need Windows 8. They realize they don't need OS 10.
Maybe so.
I think, to a degree they do, but it's not as important as it once was. It's no longer about the platform, and we're beginning to see that transition slowly, but it's getting there.
Now, this is interesting. So you see, I have 3 video clips here, and you can see there's one of them that the import bin has recognized as incompatible with my current project, right? I can right-click on that incompatible file and say transcode that, and then I can transcode it right here in the menu to something that's compatible with the editor.
That is slick.
Yeah, that's really nice.
That's a big plus. Oh, man.
And they have an option in here. They have uncompressed video as an option, which is how I prefer to work with, is uncompressed video.
Yeah, of course.
So, and they're they're supporting DNX HD.
Yeah.
DNX HD is a lossless HD interchange format that has been, I think, put out there by Avid, and it's competitive with Apple ProRes. And so our workflow for video editing goes like this. We have a Hackintosh over there. It records in a lossless file format called ProRes.
Right.
It's about 160 megabytes a second in video rate. So you can imagine we have several 10,000 RPM drives spinning, very fast capture. We save that to a drive. I then copy those ProRes files over to another Hackintosh where I edit them. And because all of these files are lossless, we're not losing any quality as we move. If these were recorded in MP4 files, you would immediately have quality loss there. And then when I open them up in the video editor, you'd have quality loss there. And so the fact that I'm able to move this all around lossless is huge. It also means the computer doesn't have to do that math I talked about. It knows where all the frames are at. It doesn't have to do any of the decompression. As long as you
happy editor, happy computer.
Right. Yeah. And then you output it to an encoder, and that encoder reads the lossless, and that's the first time you ever crunch the video is when you actually put it in the encoder. And that is super important for quality. When you're putting out on Blu-ray, you're putting out HD files, all of that really matters. It's like saving a JPEG over and over and over again versus saving a TIFF over and over again.
Exactly.
Or a PNG even.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're supporting DNX HD literally means that is one of the fundamental pieces it needs to be useful in the Jupyter Broadcasting workflow. But any high scale video production where quality matters, them integrating that codec is huge.
Well, it's a commitment to professionalism,
and it also means you can interchange Lightworks video files with non-Lightworks video editors.
Exactly.
So you could give it to somebody who's on Avid, or you could give it to somebody who's on Premiere, or whatever else can support DNX HD. That is huge. So I gotta say.
Nice.
Massively impressed here, and I think I would not be surprised if by the time this thing hits stable, and if assuming some software changes can be made on the recording, I would not be surprised to see it possible that Jupyter Broadcasting makes a switch to this.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be very exciting.
Awesome. Well, and what's interesting about the software itself is that it's basically, as it comes out, you're going to have a free option and you're going to have a I want more features option.
Yeah,
but it's available. A lot of what you're seeing here is going to be available for free. All the basic editing stuff you're seeing.
I am excited.
Done.
I am really excited.
And what's even cooler is the paid stuff isn't as ridiculous as the other stuff you see out there currently. It's obtainable. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was really low end. It was it was not horribly expensive at all.
That's the other crazy. This is going to be free.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is free. Yeah. This what you're looking at right here is free. But if you want the if you want the extra stuff, it's like I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was really, really reasonable in comparison to the other pro level stuff.
Wow.
Really reasonable.
You know, I got to say, it's tough. It's tough to make a switch. So it would take me a while to make the whole change because I got a workflow like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, you'd have to literally dedicate some time to reschooling yourself. Yeah.
But it's the first time I've ever seen this close within my grasp.
Yeah.
Very excited. So the checkout, if you get a chance to play with Lightworks, we very much recommend it. And I'd love to see anything. If anybody else out there has gotten their hands on it, you've put something together.
Any of the other beta testers or alpha testers out there who want to chime in, let
us know.
Let us know. Definitely hop onto the subreddit for sure.
We'll keep playing with it too. We're not done, but this is just our first preview look at it. And maybe down the road we might have some follow-up thoughts and things to cover. But
exactly.
There you go, Matt. That's a Linux Action Show's first look at Lightworks for Linux. That brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But before we go, Matt, maybe we should do some emails. What do you say?
Let's do some emails.
We actually have a pretty good batch, and I was going. In fact, I didn't get to them all, so I'm sorry. I was going, and it's like, oh crap, we got to go do the show. So I had to stop to do some podcasts.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the first one, just a couple PSAs. First of all, Ohio Linux Fest is looking for a volunteer coordinator. So someone to help step up and take on the role of volunteer coordinator. If you would be interested in doing that, please email news@ohiolinux.org.
Yeah, it's a big job, but it's a rewarding job. I've known people who've done that for one here. So
see all the geeks get together, right?
Good stuff.
Also, election night is Tuesday in the U.S. Tuesday the week of that this came out, and Unfiltered will be live at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, covering the election. We're going to do a long show streaming it, taking calls. So if you'd like to call in and voice your thoughts and suffer along with us during the election, join us at jblive.tv for the live streaming of the presidential.
It's the only way to do it.
I'm converting the studio into Election HQ.
That is awesome.
Are you going to have Wolf Blitzer up over here?
Are you going to do like the CNN wall of death or whatever they got?
Well, I got a green screen. I might go. No, actually, I'm not doing any of that. But I am going to have all kinds of feeds up, and then in between the big stories from the election, we'll cover the news of the week and stuff like that.
Cool. Okay.
All right. So join us for that. Now, let's get to our next email. I did mention, by the way, right? We have a Steam group. I want folks to check that out.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely make mention of that.
All right. So we got a question that pertains to OwnCloud, Matt, and I thought maybe we could see if we couldn't help him out. It comes from Clem, and Clem writes, "Hi guys. As the meat and potatoes of my question, I'm not a system administrator. I've slowly been learning little bits and pieces of info over the past few years. Specifically, I went 100% GNU/Linux last year. I'm working hard to move everything software-wise in my life over to completely free, as in freedom software.
Sure.
Even if the software costs money.
Fair.
Anywho, I really want to set up and run my own cloud server, but I have absolutely no clue. Once I get it installed, I have not a single clue how to get it set up or how to make it viewable to an outside computer or outside my local network. And I don't want to buy a domain because, well, I'm very tight on cash. I've tried any book, but I can't. Even the ones for beginners and newbies, but they're either still too over my head or I'm far, far too old to get it." He is from the Red Hat 3 and 4 days.
Goodness. Because no amount of advice, there's no, hey, just do this and you're going to be set. I think you're going to find yourself reaching out to someone who is looking to mentor. That's
a great idea.
Probably your best bet is to have someone say, hey, look, I'm, maybe they're in school, maybe they're they just want to do it for themselves. But if you can get into the user groups, especially, well, here's another idea.
Okay.
Local Linux user group. If you need some like legitimately local hands-on help, you can do some Googling around and find out what your local user group looks like there. You can also look at Ubuntu locos, I think. Yeah, that'd be an option. Otherwise, you can actually look at forums and go to the forums for OwnCloud and actually see if anyone wants to mentor you. That would be one possibility.
I think that's probably the best route to go because I was going to suggest, OwnCloud has a how-to page that will walk you through how to set it up, but it's probably going to be over your head if you're having challenges. There's really no way to avoid that unless you're talking to somebody in person. Yeah,
truly. I mean, and in the ideal situation, get someone to help you out that's local. I mean, like that can like sit next to you and say, here, let me set you up. Yeah. That would be ideal. And those people do exist. I know in some of the surrounding communities, I've seen that happen. So it's worth checking out. But yeah, I definitely think that it might be a little much.
All right, Matt. So, the next email comes in from Karim, and he says, hi, Chris and Matt, and Michael from Coda Radio, because Michael watches LAS.
Nice.
I love your show and look forward to downloading the podcast for both LAS and Coda Radio every single week. I'm emailing with a useful tip for your new Arch Linux users, which I came across recently myself. My root partition, which is 47 gigabytes last night, showed only 6 gigabytes free. Since I have home on a separate partition, I wasn't concerned too much about space running out anytime soon. However, I got curious since in my years of running Ubuntu prior to switching to Arch a little over a year ago, the root partition never went above the 20 gigabyte mark, even after installing all my favorite programs and IDEs. So I decided to take a peek at my file system with a tool called X-Disk Usage. That's all one word. I noticed that on my root, over 20 gigs of space was taken up by var cache Pacman. That was my clue. I opened up Terminal and searched for the man page for Pacman for anything cache related and came across the -C options and the $S option. So Pacman-SC. This command clears the Pacman cache for all packages that are no longer installed.
Good to know.
This could also be those packages that have been upgraded, but there's now newer versions installed. I hope Arch users will find this handy. Thanks for the great show. Yeah, clearing the package cache, that exists for basically any package manager. There's usually a package cache of some kind. So I'm watching the chat room to see if there's any immediate, like, oh my God, don't do that. But I don't see that reaction.
Yeah, no, I think we're okay. I'm not familiar with the command myself, but it sounds legitimate.
It sounds legit, right, Matt?
It didn't say -kill everything. So
right.
I think you're right.
Yeah. All right, Matt. So we got another one here that I think was probably on the tips of a few people's minds when we talked about our home server episode. It comes in from Bamdad. He says, hi, guys. As always, thanks for the great shows. Chris, I constantly hear you advocating ZFS, which is indeed awesome, but you don't really need FreeBSD or OpenSolaris to use it natively. Take a look at zfsonlinux.org. It's not a Fuse-based solution. It's a native kernel module, and if you're on Debian/Ubuntu, you can just add the PPA and have DKMS build it for you with each kernel update. My home server has 1 terabyte mirrored ZFS pool on an Ubuntu 12.04 server, and I've never had any problems with it, even though I only have 1 gigabyte of RAM. Oh, okay. And that's recently did a release upgrade from 10.04. Wow.
Okay, so clearly this is something to do some experimenting with. I think it's kind of cool.
Maybe. I'm still skeptical because it doesn't. But he says it's a kernel module.
Well, it's not mission critical. You would never put anything mission critical on it. But I think for just day-to-day stuff with understanding having backups in place, why not?
Yeah, especially if you got backups. Yeah.
Yeah, if you got backups, why not?
I mean, my stuff's already in place now, but
nothing mission critical, but just for day-to-day. Yeah.
All right, now we got somebody who's a little confused about bootloaders, Matt, and then just the last couple of things we'll touch on.
Yep.
So this one comes in from Frederick, and he says, I've been using Linux as my main OS for 2 years now, and for the most part, I find the journey to be very smooth. However, there is one thing I haven't been able to figure out. I enjoy trying out different distros. I don't enjoy using VirtualBox, though, so he prefers to natively boot.
Yeah.
My laptop hard drive is partitioned with 3 partitions for Linux installs. At the moment, Slow OS, which I consider to be my day-to-day distro. And then he has Backtrack 5 installed because he loves to try those kinds of things out.
Totally.
And then his third partition is currently empty, but he plans to use that as his playground to test out newer distributions. But what I can never seem to wrap my head around, he says, is how the bootloader works. How can I force the other installs to use, for example, the Solo OS bootloader instead of having to use the bootloader of my most recently installed distro. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could take a little time to talk about the different bootloaders, what a bootloader's purpose is, and how to configure it to avoid common mistakes. Maybe there is an old episode that deals with this subject. I'm quite new to LAS and haven't had much time to check out the old shows. Anyways, thanks for giving me something to look forward to every Sunday. Keep it up.
Outside of Grub, I've not spent a ton of time doing that. So honestly, I haven't dual booted in forever. I run dedicated or I don't run at all.
So there's a few. Yeah, I would say there's a few things to look at. So for one, there are projects out there that are just dedicated bootloaders that you install after you've loaded all your OSs, and then they take care of the magic for you. So what you want to do is, see, the thing is, what's kind of sticky is he wants to, like, say, install SolOS and then have it manage all of the operating systems from henceforth. The problem is most installers are not very considerate when it comes to loading the bootloader, and they just clobber right over whatever's there.
I'm almost wondering, the only other thing I can think of that might do what he's wanting is, I think it's Disk Manager Acronis.
Oh, yeah, they have one, too.
I mean, because honestly, the thing about that is that you can't really break anything with it. That's one. I mean, like, if you're going to do a Windows 7 and, and something else or whatever, yeah, it's paid software, but honestly, I've never seen anyone break anything with it. I mean, that might be an option as well.
You could always check. So here's what you could try. Is you could try during the installation, if the install lets you, just tell it not to install a bootloader.
Yeah.
But now you will need to know how to go edit the grub menu to add the other OS. Now, it's actually, if you look at the examples that are in grub, you could probably figure out the syntax and just put the right dev/SDA or SDB or whatever it is in there, and you could probably get it working. The other thing that you might try, and this depends on your BIOS, but this is how I do it. And this is not super elegant, but this is just how I prefer to do it. Yeah. I unplug everything except for the one drive I'm installing my OS to, just so I can be safe. I install to that. And then I unplug the other, and then I unplug that, and I plug in the next drive, and I install to that. Now, granted, that means I have hard drives for each. But I have it's not as economical because I have hard drives.
It's not, but it's safer because you're not going to screw anything up. You're not going to overwrite anything, and it just wham, bam. Yeah, no, that's actually not a bad solution.
And then my BIOS allows me to choose the boot device.
Right.
So I just choose so I plug them all back in when I'm all done, and then the BIOS I choose it.
I even going back from my oldest machines to my newest machines, I think you're pretty safe in that.
But the one thing. So what you could try, though, if you're up for this, is install your first OS, install the bootloader to the MBR, and then every subsequent OS that you install, and you can't really do this in Windows, so Windows kind of has to be the first.
Yeah.
Every subsequent OS you install, if you install the bootloader, install it to the first partition, install it to that OS's partition. On your play third partition, install the bootloader to that third partition. And then from the SolOS bootloader, you can chain load that other bootloader that's in the third partition. And then it would start that one up and load it. Kind of fancy, but if you open up your menu.list file in SolOS and you look at how the syntax is done, you could probably figure it out. But you're almost guaranteed at some point you're going to clobber something. Yeah. It almost always happens.
And then, of course, that's also assuming Windows 7. I don't know how Windows 8 is going to work with that. So, yeah, there's that.
All right, last question, which isn't really a question. It's just an email to say, hey, Chris and Matt, on last week's show, you talked about the free Android apps as in price, but not as in the free software.
Right.
Remember, and I said I tried to distinguish if it is free software. If you haven't heard of it, there is F-Droid from fdroid.org, f-droid.org, that only lets you install apps with free software compatible license. Definitely something to look at.
That's kind of cool.
And we've mentioned it, but it was like a year ago or something on the show. So if you want to check that out, go f-droid.org, and it's only free software for the Android devices. All right, Matt. Now, one last thing. For next week, we have a poll that we're running, and we want to ask folks what they want us to cover for next week's show. And you got to get in and vote on this soon because I'm probably going to be collecting the results about Wednesday, so that way I can start planning the segment. So you got to vote soon. Okay. And we'll have a link in the show notes, or I might even embed the poll. What do you want next week's topic to be about? Do you want a review of the Proxmox virtualization software that we covered in our server episode? We got some good feedback. The folks out there said that's great virtualization.
Yeah, they really liked it.
You should try it out. It uses a bunch of Linux technologies that are awesome. Yeah. So would you like a review of that? Might be a great way for people to try out different distros. Our emailer said he doesn't like VirtualBox. This might be something he likes a little better. Or would you like a review of Ubuntu on the Nexus 7 tablet? Would you like me to? I just ordered myself.
I kind of like seeing that.
I know.
I'm kind of like,
I do too. And I just ordered the Nexus 7 tablet.
Oh, hello.
I decided once they released, they did the update. I looked at the 10, I looked at the 7. I thought, no, I'm going to go 7. I like the form factor.
Wow.
There's a bunch of stink about putting Ubuntu on there at UDS. So I think I'm going to try it. They've got it. I'm going to review everything from how you do it to, how it works.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the flow works, like how that translates into a tablet experience. I think that'd be really fascinating because you may convert me. Who knows?
Now, the live chat room has already voted. 62% want Ubuntu on the tablet, while 38% want the Proxmox.
Right.
So let us know. Now, the only thing is if Google delays shipping,
sure,
then,
yeah, well,
it's going to be Proxmox.
Right. But you never know. It may work out.
Yeah, so there you go. You can chat room. I just put the link in the IRC chat room if you guys want to go vote again. So you guys, the chat room, the live guys always get the early votes. But right now, Proxmox just pulled ahead. Proxmox is now up to 42%.
Horse race.
It's getting close, so go vote on that.
Nice.
And if you want to send us an email, you can do so. Email the show, linuxactionshow@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or click that contact link at the top of Jupiter Broadcasting, or start a Threadit.
At the subreddit.
All right, Matt, where can people find what you're doing throughout the week?
As always, you can find me at matthartley.com. While nothing real recent's been happening there, stuff is coming. And, of course, datamation.com. Just look for me, open source channel, sometimes security, but usually open source. And I recently did an article there in the open source channel you might find interesting if you have parents, and they do exist, that are still using XP. And whether or not they should, in fact, which direction they should be going.
Interesting.
Yeah, so.
And you can also find links to both our Google Plus profiles and our Twitter pages in the show notes. It's a great way if you want to just get something to us really quickly throughout the week, because it's much easier to respond to those than the hundreds of emails. So thank you to everybody, though, who does contribute to the show, because I love having a little feedback to get to. We've been trying to do more of that every single episode. So email your questions in or your thoughts, linuxactionshow@jupiterbroadcasting.com. And be sure to join us live over jblive.tv. We do this at 10 a.m. Pacific, which is changed now. I'll tell you next week.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, UTC. I'll get that figured out for next week. Yeah, that's difficult. And time math is hard. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning to this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. And we'll see you right back here next week. It's time for Lightworks. I said, here we go. It's time for light. Man, it's like we got like a whole village up our nose all of a sudden. Ba 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 ba.